Hi, I'm Linda Simidian, and welcome to Shades of Us, a show that explores multicultural identities and how they intersect. We're here at Central Park in New York City by the statue displaying Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. It's the first statue in the park depicting real women, all who are symbols of women leaders and all who built a path as an inspiration for others to follow. In this episode, we'll look at a few women who are finding unique ways to make an impact on leadership. We'll tell you more about these groundbreaking guests right after this.
According to a January 2024 UN Women's Study on women's leadership and political participation, there are 26 countries where 28 women serve as heads of state and/or government. At the current rate, gender equality in the highest positions of power will not be reached for another 130 years.
We follow an international student's journey into politics and see how her identity as an African Muslim woman has enabled her to lay the foundation to impact social change.
Leadership to me means service to others, and that will automatically become service to self. My name is Salima Tudumbuya, and I am an international student here in the US from Guinea, West Africa. I am the chairperson of the CUNY University Student Senate. I am the student government president on my local campus, the New York City College of Technology, also known as City Tech. I am the founder and CEO of an organization called Building a Broader African Diaspora, which also goes for BBAD. And I serve as the student trustee on the CUNY Board of Trustees as a voting member. My identity as a Guinean, Mandinka, Fulani, Muslim woman has tremendously impacted the path that I am following. My big goal is to become an urban planner and an urban designer, which is at the crossroads of economics, politics, and also design. So in 2020, when I graduated from BNCC and started at City Tech, I decided to do architecture because I wanted to impact social change, especially the aspect of architecture that deals with cities. I got into student leadership. I was looking into different ways I could get involved on campus. I was looking for clubs, African clubs more precisely, on campuses that were talking about issues that I cared about. So I started looking into student government. I became a mentor in different programs, honor societies. I decided to run for student government at City Tech, and I ran as a senator. On the same day, my election as senator got ratified. I stepped up to be VP of External Affairs, and I won those elections. And that's how I ended up being in USS. The University Student Senate is the CUNY student organization, also known as USS, that represent all nearly 225,000 CUNY students. We fight for the affordability and the accessibility of public higher education, and we've been existing now for over 52 years. My journey as USS chairperson started in the summer of 2022, and I have been elected for the third time to serve as USS chair and CUNY student trustee. The structure of the University Student Senate is a very smart structure. In the Senate, we have about 4 to 6 representatives for each of the 25 schools. So I'm having to deal more closely in my role as USS chair with the representatives of these different schools and then have them expand it to their constituencies. We deal with policies campus-wide. So they bring to USS things that we all care about, things that we want to do. We found out the process. If we need to go rally, if we need to just have a meeting, we do what we need to do and then extend it to the broader student body. Now, as a student trustee, that is very different because I am not necessarily working closely with USS in my role as a student trustee. It's dealing with USS, the students, all the student body, dealing with faculty, dealing with staff as well, dealing with administration. So it's a different dynamic. Reaching people of different backgrounds is not an easy task at all because everybody has an opinion. And I have been learning that people only like you before you reach the leadership position. Because once you reach a leadership position, you are not the revolution anymore in their eyes. They become the revolution and you become the target. In my particular case, I was the first African Muslim woman to be in holding all these positions all at once. But people tended to forget that. I all of a sudden became the minority while I'm just one person doing all of this and trying to bring people together. So that is the biggest challenge, where people may think that they cannot relate to you anymore. So the way to reach them is just staying humble, listening to what they have to say, but also standing your ground. Because wanting to accommodate and reach people all the time is good, but sometimes it can become bad. Because at the end of the day, they elected you to be a leader. The way I see myself laying the foundation is as simple as just being there, for starters. Because when there has been no one looking like you somewhere, then just by being present, the young women start asking questions. Oh my God, how did you get there? And sometimes people are in denial. Are you really the chair? Oh, you're doing all of that? That is crazy. So without even getting in depth with the work, with the achievements, they see someone looking like them, especially the international students that see me in this role. They're wondering, how are you an international student and you're able to do all of this? Sometimes I am a little hesitant to be in certain spaces, and I just think about the fact that by me overcoming this nervousness, I am helping another young woman not even feel nervous for a second, so that the next one after her doesn't have to feel nervous, and so on and so forth, until we come into these spaces like we own them. Because truthfully, we do own them when we do great work. I love to create, I love to make things happen. So my thought process was, how can I extend that to the people of the African diaspora, the people of African descent here in New York City? I had been learning about African history my whole life in high school. The question was, what was I going to do with all of this information? Being an architecture student taught me how to go from an idea to a concept to something that becomes reality, and that is all that I apply in all my entrepreneurship journey. I decided to create my own space, my own organization, Building a Brighter African Diaspora, which started as a club at the Borough of Manhattan Community College, and which is now a full non-profit organization. The acronym is BBAD. I know the youth is craving for action, for actual change, but I want to show the youth that this actual change can come from you, and you can have the resources necessary to make them happen, not only where you live, but also around the world. Whether you are African and you decide to do that for Africa, or you're from another ethnicity and you decide to do it for people who may never know your name. I'm very proud of how far we have gone. A group of student volunteers who decide that, hey, we're gonna make the world a better place. We're gonna volunteer our time to get this work done. We're young entrepreneurs talking about food security, technology, education, mental health, workforce development, and we are getting this work done on our own while following the mentorship and the guidance of people who may know better than us. When I started Building a Brighter African Diaspora, the people who helped me the most were people from older generations. They were professors, they were people who saw it and they were like, Sally, let's sit down and talk. This is something that I have been trying to do my whole life, and I think that you can make it happen, and I'm here to support you. My sense of this whole thing is being grateful and looking forward to the next steps.
We meet an accomplished documentary photographer with indigenous Nahua roots based in New York, whose works focus on issues of immigration, social justice, and human rights.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Santos Briones. I started doing photography when I was working as an anthropologist in Mexico. I started doing it since 2004. I was working in different indigenous communities on the issue of indigenous migration, transnational indigenous migration. So in that period of time, a friend of mine invited me to work in La Jornada, that is a national newspaper in Mexico, to do reportage around migration issues, and I have the opportunity to work with the Carguacheros struggle, with Dreamers. So that led me to interest me more and more in photography. So in 2016, I decided to be part of a program in the International Center of Photography in photojournalism and documentary photography. And since that period of time, I have been developing projects around migration in a collaborative way. My family came to this country during the devaluations, different devaluation in Mexico in the 80s and the 90s. That event, since I was a child, impact my life. Living in a family who has been broken by these immigration laws, by the border, by the neoliberalism system, shape the way that you involve professionally, in this case in photography or documentary photography or photojournalist projects. I always work with people in my community where I ask them how to represent them in a good way. For example, one of them, my first one was the abuelas. I was involved in a community space that is a church, San Jacobite Lutheran Church in Onsen Park. So I met a lot of grandmothers. And when I was ending the school, the photographic school, I developed this project called Abuelas to show the importance of the grandmothers in this country, the Mexican grandmothers, and also to give them at some point work with them. So I photographing them in their homes. I think I navigate in the ethical issues through empathy, with love, with compassion, thinking about that the people that I am documenting their lives or taking photos with them are in vulnerable position. For example, when I was doing the Living in Sanctuary project, I was taking photos of women, Guatemalan women that was living in a Methodist church in Upper West Side. We were like creating these photos in collaboration. I was asking them all the time about it is good to take photos in this context, in this moment. And one day, I published some of her photos in The Intercept. And one day she called me, kind of crying, and saying like, I don't like media. I don't want to be around photographers or journalists. And she wanted to stop the documentation. And that event helped me to understand that even though I was asking all the time, I was treating her with respect. Sometimes we have good intentions that can impact badly to other people's, because she made her case publicly to the media, thinking that the media was going to help her to stop her deportation and get the citizenship. But after 1 year, she was still living in a church. So in that moment, I understand, what kind of work I want to do in the future, how I want to create narratives about this issue, migration issue. And the next project that I developed was Spaces of Detention. I work with people who was on detention in different prisons in the north part of the state of New Jersey. There are 3 prisons that works as a detention center. I remember that I thought I want to create a body on board that involve more the people, so the migrants who get out of the detention through workshops, write their own experience and draw their own experience. And also I was working about, the issue was the architecture, how the architecture of the detention centers shape the social interaction and well-being of migrants. So I create photos about the architecture of these places, and also I create collages with photos, using photos of magazines, of newspapers. The good experience that I have is like working with children also. Children that, I remember that the big news in that time was children in the ice boxes. That was a scandal. But nobody was speaking about what happened with the children that took refuge with their mothers or their fathers in these spaces, in these churches, Methodist churches, Unitarian churches, United Christ churches, Lutheran churches. and the impact that they have when they are child, since they are child, that they have to accompany in the legal process and the emotional process their parents, and they have sometimes to be translators or give interviews to the media to help their parents in this process. So I feel something that I understand is the importance to take care of the child in the childhood and to accompany in this process, not just taking photos of them. I remember that I collaborated with Dulce Carvajal, that is Amanda's daughter, and I was interviewing her, and one day she cried. She said, I can tell you what I feel, but I can write about my story. I can write you about my feelings. So she grew her story about how does it feel to be living with her mother in a church and knowing that her mother can be deported. And her paper, her writing, and she took photos with a camera that I gave it to her, was published in The Nation magazine. And then we create a multimedia project together to try to explain other children. It's something that came with her, explain to other children that was living the same situation like her.
Dulce really wants her mom to get the papers because she still doesn't want to be stuck in the church. If her mom gets her papers, Dulce wants to travel everywhere. She wants to travel to Florida to go to Disneyland, and she wants more places to go to.
According to a 2024 Impact of Women-Owned Businesses report, women-owned businesses make up nearly 40% of all U.S. businesses. That number increased by almost 14% from 2019 to 2023.
Women-owned businesses continue to grow in numbers around the world. We meet one New Yorker who started her own media company, first as a champion for pets, and now as a champion for women entrepreneurs in the U.S. and around the globe.
What we do is we invest in impactful, disruptive technologies and funds that are making a positive imprint in this world. I'm Wendy Diamond. I am the founder of Animal Fair Media, as well as the Chief Pet Officer. I am also the founder of Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization. Women entrepreneurs do make a difference. When I created Animal Fair and learning 12 million animals were euthanized a year, nobody at that time was talking about adoption or rescue. But I knew if we brought celebrities and pop culture to the animal rescue world and taught everyone you could adopt any breed, any size, any age, I knew that we would change that number. That number now is below 2 million. We created the first ever pet fashion show. We created the term Yappy Hour that's now recognized around the world. And I knew that if you taught everybody, and everybody in the world wants to help, you just got to make it easy for them. And that's what Women's Entrepreneurship Day is about as well, because I knew if everyone understood why it's so important to support women in business, they would decide to support. So I started Women's Entrepreneurship Day when I ended up in Honduras on vacation. I literally went to volunteer for an organization called the Adelante Foundation, which provides microloans to impoverished women. I was supposed to spend a couple hours. I spent 3 days and met with all these incredible women that were receiving $100 microloans to start their entrepreneurial journeys. So I knew if I could create a day, I could create the conversation. So I came back to New York. I got our governor at the time, the mayor at the time, to officially proclaim the day Women's Entrepreneurship Day on November 19th. And then I went around the world to all my friends and I asked, who in your country can bring governments, business leaders, civil society, entrepreneurs, investors together to collaborate to find solutions to economically empower women and support women entrepreneurs? So every day I wake up at 5 a.m. and I work from 6 to 9 by myself, and of course with Hathy. And that's when I get most of what I get done, is at that time, when it's super peaceful. And then throughout the day, I'm always working, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's WeChat, whether it's WhatsApp. In Asia, for instance, it's WeChat, right? So certain places use different ways of communicating. This is when I was in Colombia. This community earns about $1 a day. And this is a group of people that we funded that received the microloans that we provided. This is during their meeting once a week. It's called a self-help group where 10 women come together that are part of this group. Every week they talk about how much they save, they talk about whether they need money from another one, and it's created this unbelievable camaraderie where they all support each other. And literally they've created programs with recycling and et cetera. And the children are also participating in it. And it's teaching them how to become entrepreneurs and to really respect their community and that they can create a better life for themselves. Who's one of the women that enabled this to happen because she's a big supporter of our foundation, Laureen Arbus. This is an amazing program to support these adorable disabled children from the school in Queens. And what we did is we partnered with Silver Arts, a famous artist, and they were able to create the hearts and the awards for our women entrepreneurs that we honored at the United Nations. And these children then were able to meet the Pioneer Award winners. So working on all these projects, it just gives you hope that we can make a difference, and we see it. What's next? Keep doing what I'm doing. I love helping homeless animals. I love supporting empowered women to become entrepreneurs and investing in disruptive technologies to help this world become a better place for all.
We'll be back after this break. Regional Mexican music is one of the most popular radio formats targeting Mexican Americans in the U.S. It encompasses genres like banda, mariachi, and Tejano music, to name a few. And one artist who is African American by birth, but Mexican in her soul, is heating up the charts with her stunning vocals. Producer Tina Beth Pina shares the story of Sara La Morena.
No llega, lo olvidó, se está haciendo tonto en alguna esquina. I always knew I loved to sing. Growing up, there was just music always playing. And because I grew up in the Mexican culture and have always been around it, that music just, stands out to me. I was born in Los Angeles, California. I was born positive to, I think it was cocaine. So I was taken out of my birth mom's custody right away and placed in foster care. And the family I was placed with, they are Mexican. My dad's from Zacatecas and my mom is from Guadalajara. They took me in as their foster child and then, eventually went on to adopt me. And so I was raised in the Mexican culture. When I started going to school, a lot of the Latino kids looked at me like, oh no, you're not one of us. And then a lot of the Black kids looked at me like, oh, you're rejecting your Black roots. Like, oh, you want to be one of them. So it was just a lot of confusion. My parents did do a super good job of making me feel like I wasn't different. Like I could do what I wanted to do. I think a lot of it has to do with people just not really being aware that there are, Afro-Mexicanos and Afro-Latinos that exist. I know that my situation is different, because I was adopted, but either way, there's a lot of just ignorance in that, area.
To combat that ignorance, Sara uploaded music videos of herself singing different types of regional Mexican music, and those videos went viral.
Nadie sabe lo que tiene hasta que lo ves perdido. When the caption says that I'm singing mariachi and then people see that I'm a Black girl, I feel like that's what gets them to click. When they click on my profile and kind of just see how it was brought up and just my story, they're interested, and that's what's gotten a lot of people to share my videos and share my music. One of my viral videos was shared on many platforms. A lot of them were a mostly Black audience. A lot of them were mostly Mexican audience. So it was really cool, like reading the comments and seeing Black people like post, I don't even know what you're saying, but I'm vibing, or oh, this is tight. I really want to make a difference, if it's even in one person's life. Like, the people that leave racist comments, if one of them could see my story and just realize what can happen when we don't see color, so many great things can happen,
The married mom of two has already signed with Silent Giant Entertainment because of the response she's received online, and will soon be coming out with her first album. In the meantime, Sarah hopes she will be as well received as her musical idols.
I have two big inspirations. Jenny Rivera, for sure. Everything that she overcame and the lengths that she went, like the way she proved everyone wrong, the way she didn't care what anyone had to say, like that's a woman I look up to a lot. And Selena, I see a lot of myself in her, and the way that people try to break her down, and with the language barrier, and I just see that a lot with the color barrier, I just want people to take the time to really, get to know me and where I come from. I really want to, make it big. I want to share my music. I want my music to be heard, and I want my music to unify people. I'm not here to appropriate. I'm not here to steal anyone's culture or benefit off anyone else's culture. Like, this is just me.
That's our show. If you want to know more about the guests we've featured, check out our Instagram page at Shades of Us TV and online at tv.cuny.edu. I'm Linda Simidian. See you next time on Shades of Us.